Yo, what is up and welcome back to another Legendary Luke video. In today's video, I'm going over what it takes to develop a more aggressive playstyle in Apex Legends. I think that most of us can agree that playing aggressively and fighting other teams as much as possible is a lot more fun than having a passive playstyle. After all, playing aggressively does have more benefits besides just being more fun. Playing aggressively means getting in more fights, which will improve your mechanics, aim, and game sense much faster than just looting all game. So in a lot of ways, playing aggressively will lead to faster improvement. Also, we all just want those 20 bomb and 4K badges on our banner. So you want to play more aggro and get in more fights, which is great, but it seems like every time you try, you just end up dying. That's okay, because for the rest of the video, I'm going to be explaining how you can develop this kind of playstyle, tips and tricks, and other useful advice for playing more aggressively in Apex Legends. The very first thing I notice when I or someone else tries to implement a more direct and aggressive playstyle is that they put game sense and thinking on the back burner. Playing aggressively does not mean playing stupidly or using your brain less. It requires thinking and calculating to be successful. But unfortunately, a lot of people take playing aggressively as blindly rushing into fights without using their brain, when in fact, all playing aggressively means is to get into as many fights as possible throughout the match. This section is about how you can use game sense when you play aggressively, because the game sense you use is different than when you play a slower style of game. In an aggressive playstyle, the thinking you do is quick and more micro-based decisions than broad, game-wide rotational ones. So how can you play aggressively but still smartly? Because aggressiveness without restraint just leads to you getting sent back to the lobby. Number 1 is to not die for kills. I know you have been in the situation where you know an enemy is on very low HP, and you know you could kill them, but doing so would also put you in a bad situation, risking dying yourself. In this situation, 100% do not take the risk. There's little point in ending your game for just one kill. And you have to remember that there will be more opportunities after that. Don't throw the game out of over-aggression just because you think you have to play more aggressively. Thinking creatively and approaching fights differently will also benefit an aggressive playstyle. Most of the popular streamers like Fade and Asu have developed aggressive playstyles over time. These streamers are great at approaching fights from angles the enemies do not expect. Almost always you'll see them begin a fight by surprising the enemy and taking them off guard. This is because they don't approach fights from just one angle where the enemy is expected. A great example of this is using your teammates as a distraction to flank the enemy. The whole enemy team will be focused on them while you take an alternate angle which they do not expect. Doing this puts you at a massive advantage and allows you to initiate fights without just running in and dying. Climbing up buildings instead of taking zip lines, using high ground, and hiding behind cover are more examples of this. So to wrap this section up, remember that playing aggressively goes alongside playing smartly, and to not put yourself in bad situations for individual kills, as well as to play creatively so you can catch the enemies off guard. In aggressive playstyles, the goal is to be constantly pressuring your opponents. It might seem simple, but something that I see which is all too common in players who are trying to play aggressively is that they are not shooting their guns enough. Obviously, shooting your gun is how you get damage, but it is also a way of canceling healing, revives, and limiting the options of the opponents. More importantly, shooting is an easy way of pressuring. Continually applying pressure is how you get in control of the fight and dictate where it goes, which is what you want especially in an aggressive playstyle. I encourage you to simply try shooting your gun more. In addition to that, grenades are another great way of applying pressure. They can do all of the same things that shooting can in terms of applying pressure and then some. Let's say you want to push an enemy that is behind cover, but you can't because there is a field separating you and them. In that instance, using a grenade on their angle will allow you to walk up without them shooting at you, or force them to take another angle which will be more predictable. So if it's not already obvious, make sure you are picking up grenades and plenty of ammo so you can be consistently applying pressure in fights. I want to stress that constantly applying pressure will make it so your opponents have less time to think and less options available to them. and is the key to how you can steamroll entire lobbies and get those high kill, high damage games. To go right alongside that is the concept of closing the gap. Here's what I mean. At the start of most fights, there is a time where both teams see each other, know where each other are, trade shots, but neither team is in a position where they can make a move on the other. A lot of times damage and maybe even knocks are traded back and forth, but with no time to capitalize. This is the period that you want to remove from your game or at least limit as much as possible. This time gets you nothing, and in an aggressive playstyle you want to always be at a position where you can capitalize. I call this closing the gap. The gap is the time it will take for you to be on top of and fighting the other team, and you want this time to be as small as possible. Mostly that just means getting closer. You don't even have to bother shooting until you're at the point where you can make it count for something. This is also a reason why a lot of people like running mobility legends when they play aggressively. A mobile legend allows you to close the gap quicker and capitalize faster and more often. I'm not saying you have to play a mobile legend like Pathfinder or Horizon to have an aggressive playstyle. I think it's just good to be aware that they bring this ability to the table. A lot of people think a mobility legend's only use is to get out of a fight, but using them to get into fights is often just as useful. If you struggle engaging in fights quickly, or maybe you just don't get into enough fights in a match for a high kill game, then I would try out a mobile legend to help you close the gap. The most simple yet commonly overlooked thing about playing aggressively, and might be the reason a lot of you are failing when it comes to it, is loadout and weapon choice. Playstyle is directly correlated to weapon choice. So if you want to have a certain playstyle, you need to run loadouts and guns that complement that playstyle. For example, if you want to play slowly and calculated, taking longer range fights, you should probably run snipers and ARs, and stick away from shotguns and SMGs. And if you play only for endgames, you should probably run something like an AR and a shotgun. The same thing goes for playing aggressively. The weapons you want to be picking up are ones best used at closer ranges, since this is where most of your fights will take place. With an aggressive playstyle, at least one of your weapon slots should be a shotgun or SMG, and the other should be filled with either another close range weapon or a middle range gun like an AR. Having a close range gun is absolutely essential when playing aggressively, and having a middle range gun is still a good option because it allows you to get opening damage or knocks to initiate fights. ARs are still great picks for aggressive playstyles. You just have to make sure you don't put on too big of a scope to where it won't be helpful at close ranges. Likewise, running a sniper or long range weapon is not a good idea with an aggressive playstyle. The whole point is to get close range fights, so sniper is not going to do much good. I don't want to spend too much time on this section because I think most players already understand it, but just to give you an idea of what you do want to be using and what you don't, here are a few loadouts good for playing aggressively. Volt Peacekeeper, R301 Car, Wingman EVA 8, Volt Car, and Turbocharged Havoc R99. I also find it very necessary to mention the importance of movement in an aggressive playstyle. As I mentioned earlier, streamers and pros all mostly have developed aggressive playstyles, at least when it comes to pubs and ranked. And I think most of us can agree that they also have some of the best movement in the world. I promise you that is no coincidence. In this kind of playstyle, you will be close up and playing fast, which is when good movement is the most useful. Incorporating things like wall bounces into your gameplay, especially in the middle of fights, will make you harder to hit, allow you to reload, and overall make you a much better aggressive player. You are going to have to risk it a little more playing aggressively, and movement is the driving force behind you staying alive. If you want to develop better movement, I recommend you check out some of my movement videos on the channel. I also recommend using movement like wall bounces and super glides in situations where you are not fighting and they aren't necessary. Even though wall bounces, super glides, and other movement tech might not be effective when you're looting or rotating, the practice is what matters. Doing it more and more will allow you to actually pull these kinds of moves off in game. and as we all know, good movement is key in any aggressive player's arsenal. Lastly, I just wanted to throw in a tip that I recommend and would consider if you are trying to adapt a more aggressive playstyle. I've found it helpful to just have 1 or 2 legends to use when I want to play aggressively. I know you probably want a more aggressive playstyle all around, but doing this will allow your brain to associate playing aggressive in that legend, so you can kind of turn it off and on. I think it is better to have a variety of playstyles rather than one set way. Just like there are legends that you are more comfortable with in ranked, and different ones for arenas, the same should go for when you want to play aggressively. Getting comfortable with that playstyle on that legend will simultaneously help you naturally play more aggressively and allow you to have multiple playstyles and switch them at ease. Not only that, but it's just a fact different legends are better at different things, and some legends will be better at playing aggressively. I would start with the mobility legends and then go from there to find the ones you like the best for an aggressive playstyle if you don't already know. For me, that legend is mainly Horizon. I have about 5 different legends I use consistently depending on what I'm playing and how I want to play. 2 for ranked and competitive, 1 for when I'm solo queuing, 1 for when I'm playing pubs and just want to relax and have fun, and 1 for using aggressively. I do use other legends too, but these are my go-tos. I'm comfortable with them and know they work well for what I'm using them for. So that is why I would recommend having 1 or 2 legends that you use when you really want to take a lot of fights, play aggressively, and have an aggressive playstyle. I hope after watching this video you are able to develop a more successful aggressive playstyle. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and make sure to check out my channel for more content. I have a ton of videos on Apex and improving that I know would help you out. I hope you have a great rest of your day and thank you for watching.